But I think that's what makes this great. So the first category or the first award that we're giving out is the CEO Whisperer.
Okay.
And so,
It's a good one.
something we've been talking, yeah, I mean, this is like we talk about this on the show almost every episode. And it's clear which chief people officers like actually have that homie or like that like really tight knit relationship with their CEO, and those are the ones that seem to be doing the best work. And so yeah, we thought this should definitely be an award. And yeah, Steven, do you want to go first? Like who do you got? Who's on your list?
Yeah, so on my list, and I remember the recording with her, and just remember having a feeling of like, wow, that this was an amazing conversation. And so the person that I am selecting for the CEO Whisperer is Hannah Yardley. And the reason that, again, I just remember leaving Riverside, which is a platform we use to record these, and just thinking, wow, like we had talked to some other really big names, one of which I think maybe your CEO Whisperer for 2024. And I remember thinking, Hannah is just like on this. And for those of you that may not have listened to Hannah Yardley's episode, she's the CHRO at Achievers. And Achievers is an HR tech company that focuses on rewards and recognition. They're a big name. Like for many years, they were one of the OG kind of recognition providers out there. They're enterprise, big company. And for her to have the relationship that she has with the CEO of Achievers is really, really telling. The second thing that I remember from our conversation with Hannah is that an HR leader is a steward of an organization's greatest asset, and that's its people. And the ways that she mentioned connecting, like really driving the evangelism is, and I guess the elevating the people function within the employee experience. So much of what she shared with us came down to her relationship with the CEO, with her CEO. And the way that she described partnering with the CEO on some of the initiatives that are kind of driving this next level employee experience, it really came down to that the partnership. And the way that she approached the relationship with her CEO is that she had three buckets. There was first bucket was CEO decisions. Like these are major people decisions, and the buck really stops with the CEO. And so I love the fact that even though the CHRO is responsible for the employee experience and for the people function, there still are things that start with the top. And I love the fact that was like bucket one. Bucket two were these joint decisions between the CEO and CHRO. And then the third bucket that they had was between the CEO and all SLT members. And so just having and when we asked her what this relationship looked like, it was congruent in the sense that the examples that she gave us really articulated why we should believe that she has this great relationship with their CEO. So for me, there are a lot of other reasons, a lot of other really super memorable things about that conversation. But I think the clarity that she had just around decision making, because so much gets caught up. We talked a lot about how decisions can go sideways, particularly when the CEO and the CHRO aren't aligned. So hearing this, I guess, playbook for empowerment. What can the CEO run with? What can the CHRO run with? To me, was genius.
Yeah, that's a good one. For me, it's Brandon Sammut.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
this guy, I mean, I don't want to throw around genius too much, but like there's like a handful of guests that we've had on that are just like so clear in their thinking, and he's one of those guys. And so for him, like the first time we had him on, I think was in 2023, and in that episode, he described how he builds bridges with his CEO. And in hindsight, like looking back at how he described it, it's really like a discovery and solutioning process, like much like a salesperson would do. So the first thing he does is ask a bunch of questions, like what's keeping them up at night. And then once he understands that, he'll try to find like common ground. So there's something that's high priority for him that's also high priority for his CEO. It's like, all right, let's start here. And then just like in a sales call, he'll play back everything that he's heard just to confirm, like, hey, this is what I'm hearing. And he'll describe it and he'll say, is that all accurate? And then from there, they it's open for debate. Like they can debate the small details. And I think he said, as a CEO he once worked for likes to say, it's not about who's right, it's about what's right. And I think like, that's how every CPO and CEO should approach that relationship. And so that was like the starting point of us getting to know Brandon. And so because it felt like he has mastered this relationship, we invited him back on the podcast. And we said, how about you come on with Wade, your CEO, and this will be like our first ever CEO CPO podcast that we do. And so what stood out for me on that episode was not like their current working relationship. Like that's great, but so yeah, like that, that stood out to me. But I guess what also stood out to me, or I guess what really stood out to me, was the exercise that him and Wade went through before he ever joined the company. And so let me just go check my notes. He said, after a recent round of 360 feedback, I shared everything with Brandon, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I laid out the raw comments for complete transparency. And this is from Wade, the CEO. Wade explained that this was to show what working with him was like and to identify areas that weren't benefiting Zapier, asking Brandon for help in addressing these issues. In return, Brandon shared his own 360 feedback and readmes. They say this exchange rapidly accelerated their understanding of each other. And so they described what readmes were. And I guess like the other learning from this conversation is like these are green flags to look for from a CEO.
Yeah.
Like, we can sit here all day and say, like, this is what you need to do to build a relationship with your CEO. And like, yes, there's some truth to that, but a lot of it just comes down to the person that you choose to go work for.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was probably like an all timer episode for us.